When talking about the big three, I always like to circle back to their first major arcs. These are the arcs where the story really found its voice, where the stakes grew larger and where the main characters stopped feeling like rookies and started shaping the world around them. For Naruto, I would say that was during the Chunin Exams, and for One Piece it was the Alabasta Saga. Then finally for Bleach we had the Soul Society arc. These stories didn't just entertain us with hype battles and dramatic moments, they set the tone for everything that followed. They showed us what each series was capable of and why they became cultural landmarks in the first place. So today I want to take a deep dive into these three arcs, looking at what made them so powerful, how they were different, and why fans still hold them up as some of the best storytelling in all of shonen. So let's start with Naruto. The Chunin Exams arc is where Naruto truly leveled up as a series. Up until this point we'd gotten to know Team 7, seen their dynamic grow and watched them survive the land of waves. But the Chunin Exams, this was a whole new stage. Suddenly it wasn't just about missions or village life anymore. This was the entire world of shinobi opening up before us. Rival villages, new characters by the dozen, legendary figures like Orochimaru sneaking in under our noses. This arc turned Naruto's world from a local story into a global one. And the structure of the exams themselves was genius. Written tests, team survival in the forest of death, one-on-one matches. You think you know where this is headed, but then the whole thing just explodes into chaos, with things such as Orochimaru marking Sasuke with the cursed seal, or Gaara showing us just how terrifying a Jinchuriki can be. And the arc builds and builds until it's not just an exam anymore. It becomes the invasion of Konoha. This is where Naruto really showed it could pull off twists, mixing that fun tournament vibe with deadly serious stakes. The themes hit hard too, hard work versus natural talent, destiny versus self-determination. We see it in Rock Lee fighting Gaara, giving everything he has even when his body literally can't hold him up anymore. And we also can't forget the moment where Hinata stands up to Neji even though she knows the odds are impossible. And of course the payoff to all that comes when Naruto faces Neji in the finals. Neji preaches about fate, about how you can't escape the destiny you're born into. And Naruto, the so-called dropout, throws everything back in his face. He proves through grit and willpower that you can carve your own path. So that fight isn't just a victory for Naruto, it's a statement for the entire series. But I feel the real emotional core of this arc comes from Naruto versus Gaara. Both are Jinchuriki, both are outcasts, and both carry loneliness that no one else could understand. But the difference is what they choose to do with that pain. Gaara embraced hatred and isolation, while Naruto clung to the bonds he'd started to form. Their fight is brutal, but the resolution is even more powerful. Naruto doesn't just beat Gaara down, he reaches him. He shows him that strength doesn't come from pushing people away. It comes from fighting for the people who matter to you. And let's not forget just how much character growth this arc gives across the board. Shikamaru proving his brilliance and becoming the first of the rookies to be promoted. Sakura finally making the decision to stand her ground and fight for herself. And Sasuke not only showing his genius in battle but also taking that first step towards his darker path with the cursed seal. And of course I can't not mention Rock Lee, who turned into a fan favorite overnight. This arc gave everyone a chance to shine, and it made Konoha feel alive in a way that it hadn't before. By the end of the Chunin Exams and the invasion of Konoha, the series had transformed. The third Hokage had fallen, Orochimaru had revealed himself as a terrifying villain, and Naruto had earned the respect of his peers in a way he never had before. The arc started as a test for the next generation, but it ended as a full-on declaration that Naruto had arrived as a heavyweight shonen story. And if the Chunin Exams were Naruto's announcement to the world, then Alabasta was the saga where One Piece proved it wasn't just a fun pirate adventure anymore. It was also an epic. This was a moment in the story where the Straw Hats weren't just fighting for themselves or for a single island. They were fighting for the fate of an entire kingdom. And the build-up to Alabasta is half the fun. You've got Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, Drum Island. Each stop along the way adds something new. We meet Vivi, a princess traveling undercover who slowly becomes part of the crew's family. We meet allies and enemies who broaden the scope of the Grand Line. And by the time the crew finally reaches the kingdom of Alabasta, we're fully invested in the mission to help Vivi save her homeland from civil war. The structure of this saga feels huge compared to anything before it. Instead of one villain on one island, we've got an entire rebellion boiling over. Citizens, rebels, royal guards, all manipulated into fighting each other by Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. It's not just fists and swords being thrown around, it's politics, propaganda, and deception. Crocodile sits at the center of it all, pulling the strings from the shadows, while presenting himself as the kingdom's supposed savior. And thematically, Alabasta is stacked. It's about hope in the face of despair, truth versus lies, loyalty to your people, and the tragedy of good people being turned against each other. Vivi embodies all of this. She wants peace so badly, but she's crushed by the weight of trying to carry her country alone. And that's where Luffy and the crew come in. Not just as muscle, but as people who teach her that she doesn't have to shoulder everything by herself. The series is showing us yet again that this crew is more than pirates chasing treasure. They're a family that stands for for something. And of course, the battles in Alabasta are unforgettable. Every Straw Hat gets a moment to shine. Zoro pushing himself to cut steel against Mr. 1, Usopp and Chopper finding courage against Mr. 4, Nami stepping up in her first true one-on-one fight, Sanji outsmarting Mr. 2 in a hilarious but high-stakes duel, and then you've got Luffy versus Crocodile. That fight is legendary. Luffy loses to Crocodile not once but twice, which makes the eventual victory so much sweeter. Watching him figure out Crocodile's sand powers using water and later even his own blood was gritty. It was creative shonen problem solving at its finest. And that final clash underground with Luffy pounding Crocodile into the bedrock and literally bringing rain back to Alabasta is one of the most cathartic moments in the entire series. But what makes Alabasta truly special for me is the emotional payoff. Vivi's speech to the people begging them to stop fighting and the Straw Hats silently raising their arms with the X marks to show their bond with her. Those moments still give fans chills. She couldn't sail with them, but the message was clear, they'd always be her friends. By the end of the Alabasta Saga, One Piece had transformed. The Straw Hats weren't just a quirky group sailing around, they challenged the warlord, saved a nation, and proven that their ideas of freedom and friendship could stand up against the darkest of schemes. This saga made it clear that One Piece wasn't afraid to get political, emotional, and world-shaking, all while keeping that sense of adventure still alive. So if Alabasta was One Piece's first epic and the Chunin Exams showed us Naruto's world exploding outward, then the Soul Society is where Bleach went from a ghost hunting story to a full-blown shonen powerhouse. This is the arc that helped cement Bleach as one of the big three. The premise is simple but powerful. Rukia is sentenced to death for giving her powers to Ichigo and he's not about to let her die. So Ichigo, Chad, Orihime, and Uryu march straight into Soul Society, to the Seireitei to break her out. It's a classic rescue mission, but the way it's executed makes it legendary. From the moment the crew enters Soul Society, the world just explodes in scale. We're introduced to the Gotei 13, each captain and lieutenant with their own wild powers and philosophies. Every battle feels like a clash of ideologies, as much as it is a clash of swords. That's what makes Soul Society so rich. It isn't just Ichigo fighting captains because they're in his way. It's Ichigo fighting against the very idea that the law is absolute. Take his battle with Byakuya for example. Byakuya embodies order, duty, and tradition. He believes Rukia must die because that's what the rules demand, even if it tears him apart inside. Ichigo on the other hand is pure instinct, pure heart. He's fighting for his friend no matter what any law says. Ichigo's growth during this arc is insane. He goes from a high schooler who barely understands his powers to someone capable of dueling captains. His fight with Kenpachi is a perfect turning point. Two fighters pushing each other to the edge. Then there's his brutal training with Yoruichi, where he achieves Bankai in record time. By the time he faces Byakuya, Ichigo has transformed into a genuine force of nature, and you can feel that transformation in every scene. But Soul Society isn't just about Ichigo. Renji stepping up and defying Byakuya to save Rukia is one of the arc's most important emotional moments. And Rukia herself has to confront her own guilt and realize that her life has value beyond rules. It's a world where loyalty and duty are constantly colliding. And then just when you think it's over, we get the Aizen twist. For dozens of episodes, Aizen was the kind, soft-spoken captain who seemed like the one voice of reason. Then the mask comes off. He faked his own death, orchestrated half the chaos, and reveals himself as the mastermind manipulating Soul Society from within. That betrayal completely flips the arc on its head and sets up the series' future. Suddenly it isn't just about saving Rukia anymore. It's about stopping a traitor with godlike ambition. The climax of this arc is unforgettable as well. Ichigo saves Rukia, Byakuya's facade cracks, and allies emerge from former enemies. The Soul Society itself has to face its flaws. What started as a rescue mission ends up transforming the entire series. The scope of Bleach is never the same again after Soul Society, and fans often look back on it as the definitive arc of the series. By the time Ichigo and his friends return to the human world, everything has changed. They're stronger, they're respected, and they've made an impact on a society that once saw them as invaders. And with Aizen's betrayal hanging over everything, the story launches into its next chapter, with even higher stakes. So Soul Society isn't just the arc that saved Rukia, it's the arc that helped make Bleach into a legend. Looking back, what's amazing is how each of these arcs, the Chunin Exams, Alabasta, and Soul Society, took their series to the next level in their own way. Each one of these arcs had the same job, to prove that their series deserved to stand on the biggest stage in shonen, and they all delivered. Different worlds, different styles, but the same result, which was giving us moments that defined an entire generation of anime. So whether your favorite was Naruto defying fate against Neji, Luffy pounding Crocodile into the desert floor, or Ichigo unleashing Bankai for the first time, these arcs all gave us something unforgettable. They were the moments where the big three truly came to life, and we're still feeling the impact of these stories to this day.